Some people have speculated, including people in the comment section of my videos, that you might have changed your mind on GamerGate because either one, you saw an opportunity to grift, or two, you you um, you saw that the one side was winning and one side was losing, and you wanted to be on the winning team.
Oh, I
What do you think of
I don't think
this?
the I don't think that GamerGate is an issue that you can grift on for one. I think that that is there are 7 people watching this stream right now. You are making this book as what I would consider probably a labor of love and a dedication to truth and perspective. Uh, I don't think that that's even a kind of a valid accusation. I think that people who are doing this type of content right now, who are taking it seriously at least, and I do include you in that bucket of people, because you are taking, out of everybody who I've seen, you have easily done the most extensive content on this that I have seen to this point. But uh, as far as which side is good, which side is bad, again, I would say that you would probably get me. I don't really like the sides thing, and this is why I don't think that it's really possible to put me into that bucket, so to speak, because my critique is always, or it over the years has developed into, this has been set up as team sports. And Gamergate is a very good example of things that were set up in team sports. And I am more against that setup than I am against any one side of that situation. It's that setup, the idea that this side, their key things are X, Y, and Z. This side are A, B, and C. A, B, and C is right. X, Y, and Z is wrong. And there is no compromise between those. It's a competition. It's an argument. It goes on. That is more my problem with Gamergate, because if you are attempting to take an empathetic standpoint, it's very easy to see where both sides are coming from. There are a lot of people on the anti-Gamergate side that were like myself, that got in more or less because it was being represented as an issue about internet harassment. And I had experienced a lot of that. There are also a lot of, I think, legitimate concerns about like cultural critique and things like that. I don't know that their responses to those concerns would be real. I do think that there is, it's worth talking about like sexualizing content and things like that. I don't think that it's worth censoring it. I don't think that it's worth, I think it's worth talking about it from a perspective of, what is the value? Is there a value? Is it just, like discussing it more neutrally, I would say. But I think that there's value in talking about it, and I think that there's a real concern. And when you don't address the concern, and you don't have the conversation, all you have is people kind of existing in a an uninformed bubble, I guess. But from that side, I can see things that people legitimately cared about that one might think that one could address through Gamergate. And on the other side, the reason why I have gotten to where I am on it is because the Gamergate side, I see a lot more reflection over what my concerns are as, a Marxist, a person who sees corporate control of everything as not a necessary part of human life. And I see that more in the rearview mirror when I look at Gamergate from the Gamergate side. I see more of that there than I ever saw at the time. Like, at the time, that was represented as kind of the excuse. And the problem was these various individuals. I would say that framing, I talked about this last time, that framing harmed people's view of who the bad guy was. Because again, I talked about how if Kotaku had been the main target rather than specific individuals, maybe more precedent could be established, maybe more protocol could be established that prevents the types of things that the individuals allegedly did during that time. Like, there's plenty of evidence that there was corruption and wrongdoing done by those journalists. To what extent, I would say that there is room for discussion on that, but I would also say that there's plenty of evidence. And if the target had been Kotaku, like, why are you letting this happen, as opposed to these people are bad? The result would be very, at least, I don't know if the result would be different, because I don't know if they would actually be able to change an outlet like Kotaku, which is, to be frank, kind of a dishonest outlet. But at least you would be targeting the right thing, and maybe you could leverage enough pressure to move things in a different direction. But long story short, when I look at the concerns of both sides from an empathetic perspective, from a, what do these people really truly care about perspective, I see a lot more of the anti-corporate, anti-institution sentiment on the Gamergate side than I do on the anti-Gamergate side. I don't think the cultural criticism and concerns are fake, but I do see how that very quickly leads people into useless political concern. Whereas I see, although I do think that Gamergate's focus was kind of directed in ways that it shouldn't have, I see the seeds of what is, I think, perhaps more productive concerns there. I will probably never be what someone would call pro Gamergate, and I certainly will not in the future be anything that anyone would call anti Gamergate. But I think that it's hard to say that I quote unquote switch sides in order to be on the right side, because I have a critique for both sides, and I do have empathy for both sides. I see what people wanted, and I see how things went. And I think that on either side, what people wanted and how it went is not how it played out. And that's kind of how I try to look back on it. Like, what is to be learned from either side here? And from my perspective, a lot of what I've come to is caring a lot more about what people really like. If you drilled them down on it, if you were like, what really matters about this issue to you, I feel like it's much closer to what, as a Marxist, I would be concerned about, which is corruption, which is power, which is those types of things. Whereas I don't think there was really a lot of, I think that on the other side, there is a lot of deference to power. And I think there's a lot of looking past corruption. So I do think from that perspective, like, that's why at least reevaluating Gamergate has an appeal for me. I don't know if it's, again, I don't think I would ever call myself pro Gamergate. I don't think I would call myself, I don't like separating myself, I don't like just blatantly, and Gamergate is part of why I don't like it. My experience with Gamergate is part of why I don't like picking a team and being with it, because a lot of, you said the crash override chats were leaked. You can tell a lot of it is, the people who actually were in control sort of directing people's attention to, look at how bad this is.
We're gonna get to that in the harassment section, but
you know what I'm talking about, though, right? Like,
they were
if you
engaging
actually
in
read
actual
those,
harassment, despite being an ostensible
yes,
anti-harassment organization.
yes,
But I'm gonna ask you
and
more
it's
about that
also
when
like,
we get to that section.
look how bad this is. Look at this thing. Give your attention there. You know what I mean?